Anna stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out over the vast, untouched wilderness of the nature preserve. The wind howled through the pine trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. It was her first week as a new park ranger, and already the silence of the forest felt heavier than she had expected. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes, as the wind swept past her, whispering faintly in her ear. For a moment, she could almost hear her late husband's voice, soft and familiar. "Anna, come back." The sound sent a shiver down her spine. She opened her eyes quickly, glancing around, but there was no one there, just the endless expanse of trees and the echo of her own memories. Anna had taken this job to escape the suffocating emptiness of her house, where every corner held a piece of her old life, a life filled with laughter and love. Her husband Mark had been a partner in everything, hiking, exploring, dreaming of the future, but a car accident had taken him from her, leaving her adrift and searching for meaning. "Maybe the wilderness will heal you," her sister said when Anna mentioned the job offer. She had hoped so too, but now, standing alone in the vast silence, she wasn't so sure. She turned back toward the ranger station, the wind picking up again. This time the whisper was clear: "Follow the path." Anna froze, her heart pounding. It wasn't Mark's voice, but it felt familiar, like a distant memory she couldn't place. She shook her head, trying to brush off the strange feeling. The isolation was getting to her, playing tricks on her mind. She continued down the trail, the dense forest closing in around her. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ground. As she approached the clearing near the station, something caught her eye. A small stone marker, half buried in the dirt, covered in moss. Kneeling down, she brushed the dirt away, revealing an inscription. The words were faint, almost worn away by time. "For those who were lost." Anna frowned. She hadn't noticed this marker before, and it wasn't on any maps she had studied. The ground around it looked undisturbed, but there's an unsettling feeling in the air, as if the earth itself had a secret. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, the whispers brushing past her ears again. "Help us." She stood abruptly, her pulse racing. The voice was different this time, more urgent, pleading. She looked around, but the forest was empty, the shadows growing longer as the sun dipped below the horizon. She took a step back, her mind spinning. Maybe it was just her grief, twisting the sounds of the wind into something familiar, something comforting. But deep down she knew it wasn't just the wind, it was something more, and she was determined to find out what. The next morning, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of unease from the previous night. She made her rounds as usual, checking the trails and clearing debris, but her mind kept drifting back to the whispers. She found herself returning to the small stone marker, half expecting to hear the voice again. As she knelt down to inspect it, she noticed something she hadn't seen before: a faint arrow carved into the stone, pointing into the dense undergrowth. It wasn't part of any marked trail she knew of. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to follow it. Pushing through the thick foliage, Anna felt a strange sense of deja vu, as if she walked this path before. The whispers in the wind grew stronger, forming words she couldn't quite make out. The trail twisted and turned, leading her deeper into the forest, where the trees grew taller and the lights dimmed. After what felt like hours, she emerged into a small, hidden clearing. In the center stood an ancient, gnarled oak tree, its branches stretching out like twisted fingers. The air was still here, the whispers quiet for the first time since she started her journey. She walked slowly toward the tree, her eyes drawn to a small bundle of cloth wedged between its roots. She knelt down, pulling it free. It was a worn, faded handkerchief embroidered with delicate flowers. Inside was a small locket, tarnished with age. Anna opened it, revealing a tiny photograph of a young woman, smiling brightly. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't recognize the woman, but the look in her eyes was hauntingly familiar, a mixture of hope and fear. The wind picked up again, swirling around her, the whispers now clear and distinct. She was the first. Anna's heart raced. "The first," she whispered, looking around as if expecting an answer, but the clearing remained silent. She closed the locket and slipped it back into her pocket, feeling the weight of it settle against her heart. She didn't know who the woman was, but she had a feeling this was only the beginning of her story. As she made her way back to the station, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The forest seemed to watch her, the leaves rustling in a language she couldn't understand. When she reached the ranger station, she locked the door behind her, her hands trembling. She spread out an old map of the preserve on the table, marking the location of the hidden clearing. She needed to dig deeper to find out who the woman was in the locket and why the whispers had led her there. The whispers had become more than just the wind. They were voices, echoes of the past, calling out for help, and Anna was the only one who could hear them. The ranger station was quiet that night, the only sound being the rhythmic ticking of the old wall clock. Anna spread out the faded map of the preserve, her fingers tracing the lines of the trails. Her mind kept drifting back to the hidden clearing and the locket she found. It felt like she had uncovered a piece of a puzzle that had been buried for years. She opened the locket again, staring at the photograph of the young woman. There was something hauntingly familiar about her smile, a resemblance that tugged at Anna's memory. She flipped the photograph over and noticed faint writing on the back, barely legible. Elsa, 1927. Elsa, Anna whispered. The name sent a chill down her spine. She pulled the thick binder off the shelf labeled Preserve History and flipped through the pages, scanning the list of missing persons. The preserve had a dark past with several women reported missing over the decades. Most cases had gone unsolved, chalked up to accidents or the vastness of the wilderness. Then she found it. Elsa Woodtaker, age 24, reported missing in 1927. The entry was brief, noting that she was last seen hiking alone near the old oak grove, exactly where Anna had found the locket. Elsa's disappearance had been ruled an accident, but now with the locket and the whispers guiding her, Anna knew there was more to the story. She sat back, rubbing her temples. It couldn't be a coincidence. The whispers had led her to the locket, to Elsa. But why? What was the connection between these missing women? And why was she the one hearing their voices? A gust of wind rattled the window pane, and the whispers returned, urgent and pleading. Not just her. We were all lost. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced at the binder, flipping through the entries. Elsa wasn't the only one. There was Ruth, 1935, Margaret, 1948, Helen, 1962, and many more. Each woman had vanished without a trace, their cases forgotten by time. Anna grabbed a pen, marking each location on the map where a woman had disappeared. The points formed a rough circle, all centered around the ancient oak grove. It was a pattern, a dark, hidden history buried beneath the forest's beauty. The whispers swirled around her, louder now, voices overlapping. Find us. Remember us. Anna pushed back from the desk, her breath shaky. She realized then that the whispers weren't just echoes of her grief. They were the voices of the lost woman, calling out across time, guiding her to the truth. She stood up, determination surging through her. The forest had kept its secrets for too long. She had been searching for closure for her husband, but now she knew her purpose was bigger than that. She needed to find out what happened to these women and why their voices had reached her. Grabbing her flashlight, she headed for the door. The night air was cool against her skin as she stepped outside, the wind whispering once more, "We're waiting." Anna took a deep breath and plunged into the darkness of the forest, following the voices. The forest was silent except for the rustling of leaves beneath Anna's boots. The moonlight cast a pale glow on the path ahead, illuminating the twisted shapes of the trees. The whispers guided her, tugging at her senses like invisible threads, pulling her deeper into the preserve. The wind picked up, swirling around her, carrying fragments of words. This way, the truth lies here. She followed the sound, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and resolve. She soon reached the clearing with the ancient oak tree, its branches stretching out like skeletal arms against the night sky. She circled the tree, her flashlight beam catching something glinting in the moonlight. It was another stone marker, similar to the one she had found before, but larger. The inscription read, "In memory of the lost." Anna knelt down, running her fingers over the worn letters. She felt a sudden chill, as if the temperature had dropped several degrees. The whispers were louder now, almost like a chant. Beneath us, hidden away. Her hands trembled as she swept aside the leaves and dirt at the base of the marker. Her fingers scraped against something hard, a wooden hatch, almost invisible beneath the forest floor. She pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. She hesitated for a moment, staring into the black void. Every instinct told her to turn back, but the whispers urged her forward. "Please, remember us." Taking a deep breath, she descended the stairs. The air was damp and stale, carrying the scent of earth and decay. At the bottom, her flashlight illuminated a small underground chamber. The walls were lined with carvings, names etched into the stone. Elsa, Ruth, Margaret, Helen. The list went on, each name a testament to a life lost. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it lay a journal, its leather cover cracked with age. Anna picked it up carefully, her hands shaking as she opened it. The first page was written in neat, cursive handwriting. "If you found this, and you've heard our voices, we were brought here silenced by those who feared our strength, but our stories live on in the wind, carried by the trees and the earth." Tears filled Anna's eyes as she flipped through the pages, each one filled with the stories of the missing women. They had been lured to the preserve, victims of a dark ritual meant to bind their spirits to the land, ensuring their voices would be forgotten. But the resilience had outlasted their captors. Their whispers had survived, carried by the wind, waiting for someone who would listen. Anna sank to the floor, clutching the journal to her chest. She had come here seeking her own closure, but she had found something far greater, a chorus of voices, women who had refused to be erased. "I hear you," she whispered, "and I'll tell your stories." Anna stood in the underground chamber, surrounded by the names etched into the stone. The journal lay open in her hands, its pages filled with the stories of the women who had vanquished into the forest, their voices silenced but not forgotten. The air around her buzzed with an energy she couldn't explain, a sense of anticipation, as if the forest itself was waiting. "I hear you," she whispered again, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. The whispers swirled around her in response, a soft chorus of gratitude. She closed the journal gently, slipping it into her backpack. These stories deserved to be heard, shared with the world. The women had waited long enough for someone to listen. She climbed back up the narrow staircase, the wind carrying the voices with her, guiding her steps. When she emerged into the clearing, the sun was beginning to rise, casting a golden light through the branches of the ancient oak. For the first time since she had arrived at the preserve, she felt a sense of peace. The forest, once eerie and filled with shadows, now felt welcoming, as if the spirits of the lost women had found a measure of peace. Anna made her way back to the ranger station, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She knew what she had to do. She would tell the truth no matter the consequences. The women's voices would finally be heard, their stories no longer hidden away. At the station, she set the journal on the desk and picked up the phone, calling her sister. "Hey, it's me," Anna said, her voice crackling through with emotion. "I found something out here. It's bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. I need your help." Her sister's voice was warm and comforting on the other end of the line. "Whatever it is, I'm here," she said. "Tell me everything." Anna took a deep breath and began to speak, recounting the whispers, the hidden clearing, the journal filled with the names of the lost. As she spoke, the sun rose higher, flooding the room with light. It felt like a new beginning, not just for her, but for the women who had guided her here. Over the next few weeks, Anna worked tirelessly, sharing the stories of the missing women with the media, local historians, and anyone who listened. The news spread quickly, sparking outrage and sympathy. The preserve, once known for its beauty, became a place of remembrance, a tribute to the resilience of the women who had been lost but not forgotten. Anna stood at the edge of the cliff once more, looking out over the wilderness. The wind blew gently, brushing her hair back from her face. This time, the whispers were soft, almost like a lullaby. "Thank you, Anna. You set us free." She closed her eyes, letting the wind carry the voices away. For so long, she had been searching for closure, clinging to the hope of hearing her husband's voice one last time. But now she realized that the peace she had found was not just for herself, it was for all of them. She opened her eyes and smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She knew now that she wasn't alone. The forest held the memories of those who had come before, their stories woven into the wind, the trees, and the earth itself. Anna turned away from the cliff and walked back into the forest, her steps light and unburdened. She had found her purpose not in seeking her own healing, but in giving voice to those who had been silenced. The whispers had led her here, not to dwell in the past, but to find a new beginning. As she disappeared into the trees, the wind picked up again, carrying the whispers across the preserve. The voices were no longer cries for help, they were a song of gratitude, and for the first time in years, Anna felt truly at peace.